الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين. Of the things that we spoke about 2 nights ago that would not warrant you to repeat your fast, we said forgetfulness. That if someone forgets that they are fasting and accidentally breaks the fast by eating, drinking, or doing one of the prohibited acts in fasting, and this is due to them forgetting that they are fasting, their fast is still in order, so they remain fasting. Then we mentioned also ignorance. We said in the case of ignorance to something being forbidden for fasting, your fast becomes void. You have to do the qada of the fast, but there is no kafara. Another case that arises falling under, we said, where someone is put, or someone's compelled or coerced or put in a situation where they have to break their fast, is the case of taqiyya. Taqiyya, you need to remember, does not mean I've been invited to a house. I've been invited to my friend's house and my friend is Sunni, and their fast, they break it earlier than ours. There's no taqiyya there, because he's not going to cut your throat with a knife. If you tell him, listen, we break our fast 15 minutes after you, there should be no issue with that matter, and most of them will wait that 15 minutes and break it with you. Rather than say, all right, there's taqiyya, so why? Taqiyya means, like taqwa, it means to guard yourself. See, in taqwa, you're guarding yourself from the evil of sin. With taqiyya, you are guarding yourself from the evil of people. From what someone may hurt me, someone may kill me, someone may severely persecute me, so I conceal what I believe. As in the case of Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhima, where he has to attend, due to taqiyya, he had to attend the majlis of Al-Mansur on the day that the Mansur said it was Eid, that today is Eid. Even though, they used to have these issues back then, different Eids, different days, they existed then. Even though that for the Imam, the month was 30 days, not that 29th. But when Mansur ad-Dawaniki gave the Imam something to eat, the Imam took it and he ate it. And then the companions said to the Imam afterwards, aren't you fasting? How did you eat? And this is a case where taqiyya is formed. The Imam said that we eat now and perform qada and save our heads from hitting the floor. In other words, Mansur would have just struck your necks if you did not do taqiyya and just assimilate with what they are doing in this case. So in this case, there is qada, but there is no expiation. Inshallah, tomorrow night, before I finish, there's just one more point. Tomorrow night we'll be talking about the expiation, the kafara. One more point that I need to point out. If you actually ate, say for example, It's a point that I didn't mention and I think it's very relevant. Say I wake up at night and I'm unsure if it's daytime, if it's Fajr has passed, or it's still night. Now, it's good for you to check, but you're not... Say, for example, I woke up and I got a bottle of water next to my bed and I drink. And then I find out it's 7 in the morning. My fast is still in order. Because we go on the previous condition, which was that it was night. Now, the same's not when it comes to when you're fasting. It's the opposite. When you're fasting and you assume, all right, it's become iftar, because you doubt in the condition, and you eat, you have to do the qada and the expiation and the kafara. Because we have a ruling, and this is not something you really need to know, but they call it istishab, where we take the previous condition that you were in. It's like when someone's done wudu. If you've done wudu, and then you doubt whether you went to the toilet or not, what happens? You're still on your wudu. You go with the previous condition. Or if I had finished going to the toilet, then later I say, have I done wudu or not? I consider that I haven't, because I go with the previous condition, being the fact that I had gone to the toilet. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That's with regard to the laws there. Now, what happened with the people of Madian? We said with Shu'aib, the people of Madian were deceitful in their ways when it came to trade and dealing with others. And that was a huge problem, being dishonest when it comes to dealing. But then Allah Azza wa Jal said to Shu'aib, he said, Ya Shu'aib. He said, I want to punish 100,000 of your people. This doesn't mean all of them. 100,000 of the people. He was, they say, Madian and Aika, the area he was in Jordan, between these people. So 100,000 of them I will punish, Allah Azza wa Jal said. And he says, Oh Shu'aib, 60,000 of them are of the good doers, the ones that do good. And 40,000 of them, the believers we're talking about. And he said 40,000 of them will be of the bad people. So then Shu'aib said, Oh Allah. He said, we understand the condition of the bad people being punished. He said, but why is it that you are punishing the good people? What is the purpose of you punishing the good people? Then Allah Azza wa Jal says, داهنوا أهل المعاصي ولم يغضبوا لغضبي. That he mentions this word, داهنوا ومداهنة. And we will discuss what this means. أهل المعاصي, the people that committed the sin, and they did not become wrathful or angered when I was angered. Now the question is, what is mudahana to begin with? Because if this is what Allah Azza wa Jal brought His wrath upon, you're talking about 100,000, 60% of them are good, 40% are bad, 60% are being punished for mudahana. So what is mudahana? I'll give you an idea. I remember when I was young, when we used to go to suhoor, I don't know, with the fasting now it's a bit cold, not many people hang out. But people used to go to the bakeries, we used to sit outside the bakeries, we used to eat. And I remember one event vividly, I was sitting down and his car stopped and a guy got out and he was one of the main distributors of cocaine and heroin to the area. So he got out of the car and the people stood up as if Ayatollah al-Uzma had just walked in. And everyone started shaking his hands and, gaining his favor and his respect. So I thought to myself, these people that respect him, for what do they respect him? This is what mudahana is. Mudahana is when you give regard and respect to someone to gain favor from them. Like, I recognize you. I'm on your side, I'm happy with you, barakallah fiqh kind of thing. That does not serve a religious purpose or something for the akhirah. You're doing it just for your dunya. So it's when that way you're trivializing evil and you leave this person on their own desires. So it's basically you're exchanging your religion or your akhirah for someone else's world. And your world, whatever scraps you'll get from the table by doing this. Now this is different to what we mentioned earlier, taqiyya. The form of mudahana that is taqiyya is done to save your life, which is paramount as a believer. It's important as a believer for you to do taqiyya. Like you see those people, they go to the Hajj and then you see them outside of the shrine of the Prophet, and some of them they will curse the enemies of Ahl al-Bayt. Bring harm to themselves. This is wrong. The mu'min doesn't do this. The mu'min, when he arrives, he does whatever's necessary to fly under the radar and perform the Hajj and return. This is what's required of you. Do you think if Ahl al-Bayt alayhum as-salam were doing this, the message would never have arrived to us? Taqiyya is what delivered this message. It's different. Mudahana, if you notice, Allah makes it clear that the majority of the people here are what? 60,000 of them were good, 40,000 were bad. Meaning mudahana is generally where you have numbers. You are accepted, like living in this country, you have a right to express yourself and follow your religion. It's like when you see sometimes, I'll be driving in the south of Lebanon and you'll see a woman wearing hijab, proper hijab, and she's got her arms linked with a safira. People think, what's wrong with that? There's a big issue with this. You're in the south of Lebanon. This person is a standout there. By her being a safira, not wearing hijab, she is going against the current. And everyone's just oblivious to this. They totally ignore it and they say, this is normal, we accept this. This is what mudahana is. When you accept when something like this takes place. Because you need to remember, mudahana is being pliant towards someone, leaning towards someone. When does your enemy want you to become pliant to them? This is what you need to know. Your enemy doesn't need you when they're at strength. They need you when they're at their weakest. Have you ever seen any time the West extends a hand for negotiation with the Middle East? It always happens when they're getting battered. At first, before the July war in Lebanon, they had a staunch stance against the Muslims. And then when their pet Israel got a battering, then they extended their hand and said, listen, let's find a middle road. Let's see what we can do here. And tab'an, the usual suspects will roll out the red carpet and say, ahla wa sahla, and bring them in. The thing is, your enemy only becomes pliant when they are weak. Anyone that's against you only extends the hand of friendship when they have become weakened. So that's why Allah Azza wa Jal says, فَلَا تُطِعِ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ وَوَدُّوا لَوْ تُدْهِنُوا فَيُدْهِنُونَ وَوَدُّوا لَوْ تُدْهِنُوا فَيُدْهِنُونَ. Do not obey or do not be obedient to the liars. He says, and they would be pliant, they would lean towards you if you lean towards them. If you let down what your beliefs are and you compromised. See, this is what happened to Christianity. Christianity, before this religion existed, the teachings of Jesus that came in, of Isa ibn Maryam alayhim as-salam, was the teachings of Islam in its later stages as it's coming towards the completion of the religion. When Isa ibn Maryam taught the people, he said to them, and this is Simon, Shamun, and he will be the rock that I will, this is in the Bible, you can read it, he will be the rock that I will build my church upon, And that's why, what was he called? He was called Peter because of this, because Peter comes from the Greek word Petros, which means the rock. So Simon Peter, and later it's become Saint Peter. That's what they called him. But Peter was the wasi of Isa. And Jesus says in the Bible, when they say, he is the rock that my church will be built upon. But when you look at the Christians, who did they follow? St. Paul. And St. Paul was the enemy of Christianity. He killed the first martyr, Stephen, in Christianity. He led the people astray. And then he prevented the people from following religion because they wanted to do a wahda with the Romans. Compromise their religion for what? To make everybody happy. So what? I don't need to do it this way. This is okay. And this is what the people of Madian did. The people of Madian would see the others that were rich and making good money, and they know they do it in a deceptive way, but they would ignore it. Because the way they would look at it, they go, look, they're ripping off merchants that are coming from other countries. You know? Then they would make up a rule, you know, there in the end of the day, how Ahl Balad, no, they're our people, so we shouldn't take this too seriously. But what is the problem with mudahana? Firstly, you're leaving people doing what they are doing. What that does, it permeates in the sense that it grows throughout into every facet of your life. This is how you end up with fascism. This is how you ended up with Nazism. Did you know the world, when for example, when Benito Mussolini was first preaching his fascist beliefs, the whole world was silent. Because they allowed it to continue. When then Nazism came about and Hitler preached his words from Mein Kampf and how he wanted a utopian world of an Aryan nation and everyone was insignificant, the world knew this and they remained silent. Before the atrocities they committed, even the imperialism that exists today, the world remains silent and they apply it towards it. They lean towards it and they try and find a middle road. And when they do that, what happens? It overcomes them and it becomes too late. To the point where people begin to sell their own beliefs. How many of you, this is a question for all of you, how many of you have children at school? And while they're at school, how many of you know what takes place in the classes? If you actually join the Parent and Teachers Associations, actually find out what's taking place. You go to the school, you'll find out, like at the schools now, the bells in most schools are what? Songs. They're actual top 100 songs. They do dance for fitness in the schools. You don't know about this. They don't get you to sign a lot of these papers. The problem is, that wasn't my issue. When I went to the school to prevent these things, you'll find many of the parents that are from our community wearing hijab will stand against you. You know, maybe you shouldn't be living in this country. That's their answer. It's as if God's law does not apply here. God's law does not stretch out to here. And likewise with hijab, if you question the way hijab is worn and the manner in which it is worn, people question, something's wrong with you. Something is missing with what you have. And instead, you'll hear them talk about the women that wear hijab properly. And they'll talk about, and they'll call these people extremist people that are opposed to the dance systems and the music systems in the school. And then they'll consider you an extremist, and they'll become lenient in order to have an Islam that the West will accept. But there's a secret thing people forget to understand. It's not really secret. It's in the Quran. وَلَن تَرْضَ عَنْكَ الْيَهُودِ وَلَا النَّصَارَ حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُمْ. the Yahud, the Jews, and the Christians, the Quran says, will never accept you until you follow their faith. So if no matter how much you reform your religion, in the end of the day, you are what? A Saracen. In the end of the day, you are what? A Saracen. You never remember the Crusades? What they used to call the Muslims? They used to call them what? Saracens. You ever seen that term? You know what that means, Saracen? It means Sarraqeen. They use the Arabic word against the Muslims. They call them as-Sarraqeen, they call them Saracen. And that's the term that they'd refer to you. Or even today, and this was used to really surprise me when I used to see black soldiers fighting in the Middle East. Because when you see a black soldier fighting in the Middle East, they refer to the Arab as what? A sand nigger or a sand coon. And this black guy's fighting alongside with this white man that's using this term. The same way that they used to refer to this black man. And you have these Muslims today that will stand with one nation. You have Muslims today that will stand with every cause that is against Islam in order to think that they will be acceptable. Now the thing is, how am I supposed to treat or how am I supposed to deal with people that commit sin? Am I supposed to cut them off? Now if you look at Minhaj al-Salihin, and if you read in the Risale, Sayyid Sistani includes in the Risale, when you look at Bab al-Amr bil-Ma'ruf wa Nahy al-Munkar, he mentions a hadith. Rarely in the Risale will you find a hadith mentioned. Generally it's just religious rulings. He mentions a hadith where he says Rasulullah has commanded us, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Rasulullah has commanded us when we meet Ahl al-Ma'asi to meet them with a dry face, or to meet them with not a happy face. If you know someone, for example, is known to be a drugger, or someone's known to be an alcoholic, or someone's known to be... Known means not I've heard from someone. I know that this person's this. I know it's known this person's a thief, this person's this. I'm not supposed to... Or someone's a fornicator, or some other... I'm not supposed to treat them with a smiley face. Amir al-Mu'mineen says to give them that look that I'm not happy with what you're doing. You have to let them know. But tab'an, you're supposed to bring them towards the religion. It's not cut them off. I have to work on how am I going to bring them towards the religion. We mentioned last night the story of Imam Hassan al-Mushtaba alayhi salam and the Shami. And this is the method that if you look at وَلَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, that Rasulullah is the best example for us in order to see how he used to bring people towards him. And Allah says to him, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was rough and he was hard-hearted, the people would have certainly what? Dispersed from around the Prophet. They would have left the Prophet. In other words, he spoke to them in the correct temperament. He spoke to them in the correct manner that was needed. How? By showing them the bayina, by showing them clear proofs. Now, what you need to understand, when you show someone clear proofs, yes, I have to use some kind of politeness when I'm speaking. But when a person refuses to accept, this is where the question, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says in a hadith, if news comes to you about someone, when we say a khabar meaning khabar from a mu'min, not just anyone. You know, some people, you know, those minister, everyone has in a community a minister of doom and gloom, the one that always tells people the worst of people. No, when a mu'min muttaqi, someone that weighs their words, comes and tells you that someone does something, the Imam says, this is what hadith says, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, when this khabar comes to you, he says you approach that person. Not I go spread it to the community. I approach him. I come up to this person. I say, listen, you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you do not cease, then I'll leave you. Tab'an, with the method, in the way that is right. You bring them towards God. If someone continues on this way, This is where I take the certain precautions that are necessary. Whereas the people of Madian continued to accept this manner. But how do I leave them? Let's take a look at what Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam talks about ma'ash, the way you deal with people. He says, فَعَاشِرَ الْخَلْقِ لِلَّهِ تَعَالَى. So when I deal with people, it's for Allah Azza wa Jal. So the first thing I'm dealing is lillah. I deal with my parents, lillah. Khalq means all creation. My family, lillah. My spouse, lillah. My friends, lillah. Everyone, lillah. What does it mean, lillah? So the way God has commanded me to deal with each individual, I deal with them in that manner. The way He has commanded me. Not because of what? Personal interests. Personal interests. He says, وَلَا تُعَاشِرْ وَلَا تُعَاشِرْهُمْ لِنَصِيبِكَ لِأَمْرِ الدُّنْيَا. Do not deal with people for personal reasons. What does he mean? He continues to say, وَلِطَلَبِ الْجَاهِ وَالرِّيَاءِ وَالسُّمَعِ. Thank you. That I was probably going to do it. So in other words, لا للجاه ولا للرياء ولا للسمعة. What are these? They're all pretty much the same. If you look at them, what's jah? Al-jah is that fame or to be renowned. Okay, riya likewise, to get what? The credit. You know how they say a mura'i is someone that always likes to do things that people recognize. People will see. He never likes to work behind the scenes. A mura'i will never do a job where he is not going to be noticed. A mura'i always does things where people say, yep, that's a guy. Mura'i always has to be at the places where they get recognition. Whether if you look at anything, there's the people that work behind the scenes, then there are the people that are there. A mura'i is someone that specifically looks for those tasks where they will be seen and they will be known. Wala lis-sum'a. This is also the same. So I don't have a good reputation. So when I do something good, it should be lillah azza wa jal. When I'm dealing with any of the people, I deal lillah. I never deal with someone for a favor in return that helps me out. Because in the end, your favors are all in the hands of God. This is the first thing you need to know. Nor do I deal with them for reputation. Because I'll tell you something about reputation. How often do you see someone? Because you see a lot of people, they come, whether they wear a turban or they don't. You'll see some people, they khalif. They go against the mainstream and the religion. They come with their own opinions deliberately so they can become famous. They become famous and then you just see them drop. Between the people then don't give them that weight anymore. Because their initial reason for doing this was what? To gain this jah. To gain this wajah. So people can see them and give them that regard and give them that reputation and give them the credit for doing this. The person that deals for God, Allah Azza wa Jal elevates who He wants. Allah Azza wa Jal will bring people out. Because if you could imagine someone like Sheikh Abbas Al-Qummi, rahmatullah alayh, the one that compiled Mafatih al-Jinan. At his time, he was another one of these ulama that existed, another muhaddith at the time. He wasn't at that time. If you look, research the ulama that were the most elevated, he wasn't in the upper echelons at the time. Yet Allah Azza wa Jal has brought His name out today where every house has His book, every house, and there's been not one person has written a dua book. A lot of people have compiled dua books. But his book stands out over all books. So Allah Azza wa Jal will elevate who He wants. Allah Azza wa Jal will remove who He wants. And this is who you have to deal with. Finally, the Imam, I'm cutting bits and pieces from the hadith, which is with what is necessary. He says, وَكُنْ رَفِيقًا فِي أَمْرِكَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَشَفِيقًا فِي نَهْيِكَ عَنَ الْمُنْكَرِ. وَكُنْ رَفِيقًا. So in other words, be friendly when you're doing Amr bil Ma'ruf. Not turn around and say, no, صلي. No. This is not the way you talk to people. You not be pushy with these people. What are you doing here? Have you ever seen sometimes a caretaker of a mosque or a caretaker of an Islamic center and he's always kicking around everybody? People don't want to be there. You got to be friendly when you're talking to people. You got to be friendly when you call people to prayers. One of my friends once told me, he said, when we were asleep and our father used to wake us for morning prayer, he said he would get an apple and he would put it on our lips and the juice of the apple would hit our lips and the sweet taste would enter our mouths and we'd wake up. This is how we wake them up. How do we wake them up? Drop a few elbows on them in order to get the child to wake up and pray. He says, be a rafiq, friendly. Wa shafiq. When you are, shafiq is different. Rafiq is friendly. Shafiq is someone that's very mild. Bin-nahy al-munkar. When you're stopping someone from sin, be very mild about it. Be very subtle about it. Taban, this is the general way of dealing. Some people, they don't work like this. Everyone has a different way to talk to them. But generally, this is how, when you want to call someone to do, oppose them from doing wrong, most people work with a good word. Most people. You catch more flies with what? With honey. Most people work with a good word. Some people, they don't work like this. Some people, they just understand the international language, and I don't mean love. So anyway, in the end, because of this, Allah seized them with an earthquake, and the verse says, فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجْفَةُ, says the tremor that seized them, فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ. Allahu Akbar. That when the wrath of God came upon these people, because the bad people, what was their sin? We said they were ripping people off in the 2 nights ago. And the good people, what was their sin? When I say they were good, meaning that they were people that prayed, fasted, believed in God, did the good actions. What was their punishment? Is they were pliant. They were too friendly and accepting of the sin of the others. And because of this, they both fell under this same wrath and they were left in their homes, in their abodes. فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دِيَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ. Do you know what that means? That means they were dead where they were. They were corpses where they were. And it wasn't like as they were just bodies lying there. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to keep us away from His punishment and cover us in His mercy in this month of mercy. We ask Allah not to take us from this world until He is pleased with our actions. We ask Allah to take us upon the wilaya of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi alayhi, walhamdulillah rabbil alameen, wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.